We got to start with the NBA. And I'm not going to lie to you. I never pay any attention to the NBA. As a kid, I did all the time. Loved the Pistons growing up. I grew up in Toledo, an hour from Detroit. When I was real little, we're talking 6, 7, 8, you had the bad boys, Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, Isaiah Thomas. I loved that 2004 Pistons team. And we're going to get to that because Chauncey Billups, a great player on that team, is obviously a huge part of this NBA betting scandal, which we're going to talk about. All right. I haven't read every single thing about this scandal. I've read some articles. I've read some of the court documents. And all I can say is, how stupid are these NBA players? How dumb can you be? Do you really think that you're going to get away with this? I understand sometimes too, you're compromised. You're probably in a bad spot betting yourselves. You got in with the wrong people, whether it was these poker games, the mob, whatever it is. A lot of these guys in situations like this have their own gambling issues. They don't really want to gamble on their own sport. They like gambling on other sports. Maybe they play blackjack, poker, whatever it is. But then, as a last resort, because they're down bad with somebody bad, all of a sudden, you got to start fixing, putting your work in on these games. And all I'm saying again is, how dumb are you? Think about the Terry Rozier stuff. Terry Rozier, scary Terry, right? You really think you're not going to get caught when all of a sudden there's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars being placed on Terry Rozier unders? Not Giannis, not Jokic, not a star, Terry Rozier. You don't think you're going to get caught? We talked about this with Jonte Porter. You don't think it's the biggest red flag in the history of red flags when all of a sudden there's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars being placed on Jonte Porter unders, Terry Rozier unders. Most people don't even know who Jonte Porter is. They know his brother, Michael Porter Jr. We know Jonte here in the St. Louis area, Missouri area, because he played for Mizzou, and those brothers grew up in Missouri. But Terry Rozier, you really thought you were going to get away with this? You don't think Vegas or the sports books would be clued in on this when all of a sudden they go, oh, hey, look, here's our normal handle on Terry Rozier over-unders, and it's X amount, whatever it is. I don't even know. I don't even know why you would ever bet on Terry Rozier. Why would you ever bet on Terry Rozier unders or overs unless you had inside information? Why would one do that unless you're a family member? But whatever the normal handle is on Terry Rozier, you don't think it's just the red flag of the century when all of a sudden it's 100, 500, 1,000x, probably 10,000x all of a sudden, how much money is being bet on Terry Rozier. And it's not just him. Whatever's going on with Chauncey Billups and also these illegal poker games, that's a different story. And I love poker. And that's shady. Shady, shady, shady. If you're screwing people out of their money, you're cheating them in poker. We're not going to talk a ton about that, but that's awful as well. But this stuff with the NBA, Chauncey, my guy, Chauncey. And that's why this one hits a little bit close to home. Because again, that 2004 Pistons team, my favorite NBA team of all time. It was 2004. I had just graduated college at Bradley University. So the playoffs would have started right at the end of my senior year. But then I go back home to Toledo. I didn't get a job until September of 2004. So that summer was a lot of watching the Pistons march through the playoffs. By the way, the Pistons should have won the championship the following year. They should have went back-to-back in 2005. If Rasheed Wallace closes out Robert Horry in Game 6, I believe, don't quote me on that, I have learned that my memory is not as great as I thought it was, but Pistons should have went back-to-back. Oh, by the way, they also drafted Darko, where if you drafted anybody else in that draft after LeBron, so you could have had what? D. Wade, Chris Bosh. Maybe you win 3 championships. Imagine if you have D. Wade on that team, and then somebody's coming off the bench, whoever it is. Rip Hamilton, I don't know. That's not the point. But I loved Chauncey Billups. He was my favorite, my second favorite player on that team. Ben Wallace was my favorite. Chauncey was my second favorite. And I also got the chance to cover those guys. So I interviewed those guys a decent amount. This would have been 2006 and 2007. Got to cover a decent amount of Piston playoff games. This was after, obviously, they win it all in 04. They're runner-up in 05. This was 06, 07. I remember they played the Bucks, I believe, in the first round one of those years. I covered some of those LeBron matchups. It was 07 when LeBron finally took the mantle from the Pistons. Remember, the Pistons, they went to the Eastern Conference Finals a million times in a row. And then LeBron finally won that 07, I believe, where LeBron scored like 25 straight points for his team. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's the number. Anyway, so I interviewed Chauncey a decent amount. Great dude. Great dude back then. I can't speak for anything. I can't speak for anything in more recent years. I didn't even know, honestly, I didn't even know he was a coach. I didn't even know he was the head coach of the Portland Trailblazers. I didn't even know that. That's how little I pay attention to the NBA. But this story got me nostalgic. So I actually, last night, I started thinking about Chauncey and Big Ben. I started watching intros. Remember Mason? Mason, who changed the game when it came to intros. And he would say, the Piston won. Red, blue, and white tonight. I'm paraphrasing. 6'3", Chauncey, Billups. Love that. Love Mason. Those intros, I watched them last night. I got nostalgic. I watched those intros. They're freaking awesome. Freaking awesome, man. Mason, they had the pyro. I remember being at those games, those playoff games. And I'd be sitting not courtside, but pretty damn close. They'd let the media sit pretty close, couple rows back. Sometimes close there on the table. And that pyro would go off, and you could feel it. You could feel the heat when they would have the pyro go off right there. I think it was behind the baskets. Anyway, Chauncey, come on, dude. You're smarter than this. You really thought you wouldn't get caught with all this, with the poker games? Terry Rozier, you really didn't think DraftKings and FanDuel and all these, that it wasn't going to be the biggest red flag of the century? Come on, man. You guys are smarter than that. I thought. Apparently, you're not.